we are recording, and there's some people on the live stream. So thanks for being here. I am so glad to see you. I do know there's so many things competing for everyone's attention right now. So we really value the time that you've taken to hear more about Clare. There will be lots of time for questions at the end of my presentation. So if you have questions, those of you in person will get first dibs, and then we'll go, if there's anyone online, you are welcome to join in as well. So this is a pretty informal presentation. We provided a half sheet of paper at the door. If you didn't see that, that's going to hit on some of the items that I will cover just as a reminder, so you can go back to that and look. And I am going to cover 3 different sections, kind of primary sections, things about what is behind us or kind of what we've come through in 24, things that have been challenges or are challenges, and then what's next for Clare Housing. At the very end, I'll touch on a few what can you do or how can you help kind of items, and that's the format. So I'm going to aim for being wrapped up in about 35 minutes and leave the rest of the time for questions. So let's get started. Yay! I love a small but mighty group. That's important. So Phoebe, Executive Director in my 4th year here at Clare Housing, and our 3rd time doing this, as Jenny said, to hit on some of our impacts and our highlights and successes from 24. I'm going to start with the good stuff and work through. So highlights from 24, we had majorly improved outcomes in 2024 as compared to 2023. I'm not going to go through all of the data because that will be published in our annual report and you'll be able to access the specifics. We feel, we look at why did they improve? Well, we focused on outcomes, so that's one reason. We think also due to an improvement in our data recording and reporting system that we were able to respond more quickly each month that we looked at outcomes and able to respond to the actual needs we were seeing. We've started to bring in more tailored support for residents at our different sites. And we had less turnover in 24 than we have for many, many years. So as we gain more skills on our staff, we see better outcomes. We hope to continue to build more skills and retain staff so that can continue to happen. Last year, we were awarded a HOPWA, which stands for Housing Opportunities for People Living with HIV or AIDS. So I'm going to use that term, HOPWA grant, which was called an HIV intervention grant. There were only 11 granted nationwide, and we were one of those 11 recipients. So with that funding, we'll be launching in the next 2 months a housing program that we're calling a no barrier housing pilot. And this will be focused on serving people who are using intravenous drugs and are coming directly out of encampments. So a pretty specific population, and the attempt is to see if we provide the housing with intensive supports on site 24/7, can we help people get to other stable housing? Can we help them get connected to care? So we're pretty excited. We've been working towards this for several years. We have a house that's purchased. We're completing renovations, and we hope to launch this summer. So that's been a lot of work. We also secured and expanded funding in our scattered site program. So we have Gail here who can speak to that because they're one of our many wonderful case managers. But that's allowed us to add additional families, households that we're serving. So we're up to around 85 or 90 in our scattered site program. We secured, this is a long road, but for 4 years, we've applied for funding to recapitalize this building that we're in. This was our first apartment building. And after 4 years, we did secure the funding to go forward with the much needed repairs and recapitalization here. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later on, but I will highlight, this is something I realized a lot of people don't know about affordable housing LIHTC projects or low income housing tax credit projects. When you build a project that is deeply affordable like Clare's, so that means that all of the units come with a subsidy. If someone is income qualified, they're typically 30% or under area median income. Because of that, we don't expect to cash flow this building. We're not getting enough rent to pay extra or to have enough for major systems repairs. We're getting enough income to pay for staff, to pay for utilities, but there's built in a reserve. So that means you plan ahead when you build the building and you put in a reserve for replacements, repairs, operating expenses, because you know the building won't cash flow. And when this building was built, that framework was built around a 15-year operating time frame. So we submitted for all the funding saying in 15 years, we'll be out of money for reserves. We won't be able to do replacement repairs. That was how the model was built and still operates today. So we're in year 20 at this building. And as you know, there's been a lot of growth in permanent supportive housing, affordable housing development. So now the state is in that situation where lots of programs like ours are coming back to say, okay, we don't have any more reserves. When the elevator goes out, when something happens, there's nowhere to pull money from. And so that's why it's taken 4 years to get that funding, because I think it's become evident at the state level that they need to prioritize preservation in addition to new building. And just putting that out there because I think it's been covered a lot, well in the media, but it's still super confusing. And I've had people say, why should we support Clare if you didn't plan ahead well enough for your building? And it's been helpful to explain, well, actually, that's how these LIHTC projects are built, is to not have any profit on the building. And there's no profit, there's no money coming in long term. So hopefully there'll be some changes so that's not the situation forever, but that's where we're at in that system. So other things, we're in year 20, I hit on that in this building. Other things that we've been through this last year, we've had some continued success with our hotel to housing program. We launched that and have served 26 people in 2024. And these are similar clients that we're focusing on for the Clare Digs project. So people coming out of encampments recently diagnosed with HIV. And of those 26, 90% exited to permanent housing. So pretty amazing number. We're really excited about that program. We also expanded some programs into Greater Minnesota for the first time. So we launched a short-term rent mortgage utility assistance program, which has served over 100 households so far, and we're not yet to our first full year. And that's really different for Clare because we've been built on permanent supportive housing. This is a short-term rent assistance program. So we see clients in this program for 1 month up to 3 months. And that's a really different touch point compared to our long-term residents. We also secured a capacity building grant, which I'll talk more about next year because hopefully we'll have implemented that. But the idea there is to do more exploration in Greater Minnesota about the housing needs for people living with HIV. We also reestablished a housing advocacy position, and that's now situated at Clare, and I'm going to talk more about that in our next steps. And I think this is the last thing for what we kind of highlights and successes is that we added a mental health program manager who is doing a lot of work on the ground to identify the specific services clients would use and that they've stated they need and would use long term. And we're hoping to build in on-site counseling for clients moving forward. So it's a lengthy process to figure it all out, but we have the person in place who's qualified to supervise and lead. So I'm going to move to the next section. Wait for it. Okay. All right. The next section, I'm going to talk about our challenges. I didn't want to lead with the challenges. There's so many challenges I know people are facing right now. And that's true with us as well. So in the past year, in 2024, we withdrew from a partnership with Bloom Lake Flats. And that was a pretty big challenge and a difficult situation for staff and the residents that we served. We have 4 of the original households that are still at that site that we are still working with. Our case manager is working very closely still with the site. About 10 households have transferred to other Clare properties or to other Clare programs. So we're still serving those 10. And that was particularly, we were able to do that for families through the expansion of that HOPWA scattered site piece that I mentioned earlier. We have Ryan White funding cuts. Ryan White is a source of funding that comes through the HRSA, Health Resources Services Administration. It's sort of the counterpart to HUD, and it's the health side. Those cuts are not related to the federal government changes. It's really related to how the state budgeted for Ryan White and how much it's a complicated reason that we still are like, why is this happening again? But we don't have the funding that used to exist in prior years to support Ryan White case management and services. So we have had 7 positions funded through that source, and all 7 of those positions have been cut, and that will result in about 150 people in our services being unenrolled from service. And that's just Clare. So the impact is pretty statewide. There's cuts across every program that received Ryan White. And we are yet to be told the full impact. They haven't given us a list of where we can refer people for services. So it's really hard to unenroll someone and get them in when you don't know who can provide the services ongoing. There'll be a reduction in food support, likely in transportation support, emergency assistance. So across the board, programs were cut, and that for us takes effect in July. For others, that impacted them starting in February. It just depended on your grant timeline. So that's obviously really tough news. The other big challenges, uncertainty at the White House and funding that comes through the federal government. HOPWA, which I mentioned earlier, and HOPWA comes up a lot for us because it's housing for people with HIV, which is what we do. HOPWA funds about 20% of Clare Housing and touches 90% of our residents. So huge impact across the board. And the current presidential proposal would really end all permanent supportive housing funding. So you've probably maybe heard about cuts to Section 8, cuts to other programs that offer support for housing long-term. All of those would be changed into short-term emergency assistance shelter type grants. So we are pushing back against that. That would have a pretty devastating effect on Clare Housing and others like us, where we've seen that permanent supportive housing is a need and is a fit for many people. It's not for everybody. It's not a need for everyone. But for those that need it, our average tenure is about 4.5 years at Clare. So we know that more than 3 months' time is sometimes needed for somebody to get stably housed. Let's see, the other big impacts. We don't know how funding cuts will impact philanthropy and individual giving. We know that everyone's feeling squeezed and not sure of what their future will look like. So we anticipate there'll be some potential fallout on the individual giving side. And then I want to point out that the anti-DEI and LGBTQ rhetoric and policies are harmful to staff and our residents and the communities that we are trying to build. And I was talking with Jenny about this. I can't point to one policy that says like, oh, this thing is going to make us do X. But what we see is that our clients are fearful and our staff are fearful and feel like they are going to be targeted, and that because of their identities, they will be targeted, and they're living in a place of fear and stress, which isn't great when you're also dealing with some other issues of trauma and instability in your housing. So we are working to try to be realistic, but also to support staff that are getting that input from clients that emotionally it's been a really challenging time. And Clare is committed to continue to serve people who identify in any way that they choose, and to not just serve them, but to celebrate them, because we've been built on the foundation of accepting people and loving and respecting people because of who they are, not in spite of it. So that's just a piece that is, people are carrying around. In 2024, I was on leave, but you all may remember Rainbow Health closed, which was formerly Minnesota AIDS Projects. I think that was just Project. MAP, Justice Health, Rainbow Health, that agency closed. Also, lesser known, the African American AIDS Task Force closed, which was a spinoff of MAP back in the day. So they've been around a couple decades. And Camp Benedict also closed, which was a camp for kids impacted by HIV. So those are pretty major losses in the HIV service arena. A lot of things happened quickly after Rainbow Health closed because it was closed in a 4-hour window of time and programs were cut off. So there's been some scrambling and resituating. None of the mental health services were picked up. All of those practitioners were out of work and had to move on. Some of the other programs were picked up by Aliveness, by Rural AIDS Action Network, and then we picked up a little bit of the Greater Min work and the advocacy work. So luckily, but that all took about 8 months to get kind of back on the rails. So that's been a challenge. In addition to the HRSA cuts, potential HUD cuts, I would just say that's a lot of uncertainty right now in the HIV provider field. No surprise there. I think it's important to raise up what we're seeing at the state level as a challenge is the waste, fraud, and abuse sort of concentration of focus for legislators, and that there have been some news stories about nonprofits not doing what they should be doing, and that's caused a lot of conversations at the Capitol to be reverted back to not to like, how do we end HIV transmission? How do we house everybody living with HIV? Instead, it's sort of like, how do we ensure you're not wasting or abusing this money? Which, again, there's a place for that, but that's been the conversation at every meeting or hearing I've been at has gone back to that same thread. So you're a little bit like, well, what do you want to do? How are you going to solve this problem? Which is why we're here. And then I will point out that data on HIV diagnoses in Minnesota does show a widening disparity, especially related to race and youth. So more people in the younger age bracket. So I'm talking like 18 to 22, I think is that group. And it's particularly showing disparities among young adult Hispanic men who have sex with men. So those numbers are going up at a much more rapid pace than any other group over the last 2 years, 2023's data and 2024. And then lastly, we have continued pressure from DHS to the legislature to eliminate our nursing program that, not ours, but the program that supports our nursing due to lots of budgetary issues, but without any identification of an alternative service. So that's been an ongoing legislative issue and challenge that we continue to face. Whew, okay, that's a lot. Those are all the challenges. There's some others, I am sure, but those are the big challenges that we have been facing, summed up in bullet form. Okay, so what's next? Despite all of that, we have some really amazing things going on. It's a little bit of a high, low, high. As I mentioned, we purchased the site for Clare Digs, this pilot program to serve people with pretty high needs, and we hope to open in June or July. We secured enough funding to do the $7 million renovation of this building, which will be about an 8-month process and will start in the fall. We're still working on the final contracts, so much paperwork, but some of the main things that we know will be done is a new HVAC system. Yes, so that you can control the heat and the cool. So until a week ago, we had no air in this building. It was so hot. Tenants were so hot. It was so. In the future, you'll be able to like turn the air on when it's hot. New elevator, so we don't have as many interruptions in the elevator service. And then new reserves. So when I talked earlier about the creation of reserves, those are there for when you need a new roof, when you need new windows, when something happens you didn't expect. Right now we have nothing, so we're sitting on that edge of please, please, nothing happen. And we will be able to replenish reserves for another 15 to 20 years with that funding. So pretty excited, Clare will get a little bit of an update, but will be sustainable then going forward for at least 15 to 20 years. We also have another building in the pipeline. It's got a little bit of funding attached, just a fraction, but we're looking at Clare 5. It will get a better name. It will serve people who are 55 plus living with HIV. And the identified site is here in Northeast Minneapolis. It is a really cool, it's in the Holland neighborhood, and it is a very cool partnership with two other agencies. One, the owner of the site currently is Mississippi Watershed Management Organization. And so they are working on the site to do some cleanup from toxins that are on the property. So it's an abandoned lot. It's a large lot. And they're also doing water retention systems as sort of a model system for retaining your own land water. And then once they've cleaned it up, Clare will build our housing, hopefully, all things go as planned. And then next to us will be Spark Y, which is a youth green jobs development organization. So it's a very cool, they do a lot of stuff on green jobs. They like dig basins and stuff like that. They have a better presentation on their work than I do, but they do good stuff. They're gonna be great. No, they've been growing a lot in Northeast, and they do science education and then the jobs training program, and this will be one of their work sites. So not housing, but an actual work site and some labs for their work. So pretty excited to be partnering with a dual use on this property. And that we're looking at a really similar size building to what this is. So about 33 units at that new location. And that could be a couple years off, but we had one award in this last cycle. So, and then lastly, really excited to talk about our housing advocacy work, because we were able to pick up a position from the Rainbow Health closure, which is our Minnesota HIV housing systems advocate. And Madeline's here. That's her right there. That's the real one right there. So we were able to hire Madeline in February. And because we have a person dedicated to advocacy, there's a whole lot of stuff we haven't been able to do that we now have the capacity, the time, and the focus to be able to do. It feels, in some ways, it's like a weird time to devote resources to not doing direct service. And by that, I mean like everyone else in Clare's staff is focused on getting services to people. You know, they are caregivers, they're helping at the desk, they are filing the paperwork so we can get paid to do the services. This is the first time we have someone who is paid to go change the system. And we're really quite excited. So I'm going to hit on a couple things that we aim to do and that we already have generated momentum on. We are hoping to double the membership of our HIV Housing Coalition. Right now, we meet monthly with about 20 agencies. We want to double that and get people from greater Minnesota to show up at that table. And that coalition is focused on housing for people with HIV. We are hoping to build a pool of people who are living with HIV and receiving services to be able to speak to their experience and the importance of this work. We have seen so much that the stigma of living with HIV can limit hearing directly from people that are impacted. And we want to find people who are willing to share that, to help support them in telling their story and to actually getting them in the room with their elected officials. So far we've been able to do that with 5 different people this session, one of whom came 3 hours from Greater Min. It was awesome, had never spoken, spoke at our rally, and there's more to be done. So really excited, because when people can talk to their constituent who is impacted, so much of a bigger impact long-term than me going to 20 meetings and doing my thing. The next thing we are looking to do is to build true bipartisan support for the HOPWA program and other HIV funding. And we've had bipartisan support in the past, and we need to continue to reach out to people on both sides of the aisle, because without it, HOPWA will go away. and Hopwa and Ryan White have always been supported by both parties because it's really about serving our community and the health of our community. We need to get that back on people's radar. Like there's no reason it should be not bipartisan. So we've been able to meet with a couple of our congressional members from the Republican side and from the Democrat side, and just starting those relationships. And I think in the first call, I think the person we met with said, like, I haven't heard about HIV in like a decade or something, So just having the conversation is awesome. And now we can go back and say, okay, now we want you to sign on and support, or tell us your ideas and we can work with you on that. And then lastly, we really want to talk across this coalition we're building on the advocacy side about how we end homelessness for people with HIV. We know who they are. We know where people are for the most part. We need the housing resources so that everyone with HIV has access to housing. And we're really interested in looking at models like the Initiative to End Veteran Homelessness, things like that have charted a path for how, if you dedicate the focus and resources, you can really change the trajectory. And for us, we know that means we could change the trajectory of new HIV transmissions. So really, that's our big long-term picture through this advocacy work. Okay, I gotta check my watch. Okay, I'm doing great. I think that's from a time perspective, so then how you can help. Oh, there's so many ways. You came today, so you're in the top % of educated people around Clare Housing. So that is a start. Top 1%. We also, thanks. You're great. Thank you, Jenny. The other thing is, if you're into advocacy, willing to do advocacy, we have an advocacy email list. And that's where we send out quick things like, send this to your elected officials, or help me send a postcard. If you're not on that list, get on that list. Nikki runs that list.
You go to clarehousing.org and click on our legislative priorities.
clarehousing.org. Click on our legislative priorities. You'll get added to the list. You don't have to. We won't harass you. You can just look at it. But that's a great way to get up-to-date action items. Also, on your little half sheets, check out the back. Whoa, QR code. These are new for me. Not really for you. I've done them before. If you haven't contacted your legislators about HOPWA funding or about the state funding for HIV services, there are 2 QR codes on there. They're different. One is for the state, one is for HOPWA at the federal level. Do it. It's really easy. You just pull it up, put your name and address in, and it'll go out to them, and it says we support and we want you to support these funding sources. So we're trying to get this in front of people. At HIV Day on the Hill, which Madeline helped bring these resources, we had about 250 contacts, 230 contacts with legislators, which is amazing compared to, that's a powerful number of people to hear from, 230. So that was through postcards, individual meetings, and then emails through that right there, through what you've got, QR codes. And other options, if you're not a QR code person, it's okay. You could also volunteer and spend time at our buildings with residents, really thinking about some of that fear that I talked about and isolation, and just feeling like, are they coming for me? Like that kind of feeling. The ways that we want to combat that is through building community. So we have lots of opportunities, if it's providing supper through our supper club at the care homes, if it's coming into this building and doing a bingo night, karaoke, a breakfast. There's oh my gosh, people love bingo. And she's like, bingo. Movie night. We have a lot of residents with pets that would love, maybe you do pet grooming. If you're interested in spending time with residents and building that community, that's a definite opportunity. And we have lots of sites to choose from. And then also this is always important to us. If you can think of somebody that doesn't know about Clare or doesn't know about HIV and housing issues, and you think they'd be interested, we would love to meet them. We would like to tell them about us. We would like to get them involved. So that is, we'd like you to connect us to your people who have the passion that you have. And Jenny's here. Well, I think the best way to do that is to write it down right now and or email us. So we have, oh, there are the note cards. We talked about note cards. There they are, note cards. So you can put your name and the person's name, and then we'll just email you or call you and say, why did you suggest this person? Can you introduce us? And we'd love to keep growing our network, especially, as I mentioned, at a time when there is so much coming at people. We need to keep telling people that we have the tools to end HIV transmission if we put them to use. And so we need to get on that same train, and we're going there. Okay, so that's my whole presentation. I really appreciate you listening, but now it is time for your questions. That was 2024. Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Come in. Delicious cucumber water was served here, or was it lemonade? Water. Spa water. Any questions? Yeah, Claire.
What is the nursing program that they're trying to cut?
Yeah, okay, this is a,
Repeat the question
oh.
for our live stream audience.
For those watching online, Claire asked, what is the nursing program that is trying to be eliminated? And now this is a good one. It's very, okay. 24/7 customized living is the name of the program that allows us, as it sounds like, 24/7 customized living means that we have access to nurses 24/7, 7 days a week. It's part of that, to provide individualized support to people enrolled in the program in customized living. So at this building, for example, we have 16 of our tenants who are receiving nursing services throughout the week, throughout the day. And this program has been around since we opened, so 20 years. And this is the program that has continually been kind of chipped away. So over the last 4 years, they sunset the program. No new sites can exist. And then they changed the age qualifications. So any new site, any sites within a range had to be 55 to 65. And the new proposal is to limit only to 55 and 65. So that would mean that tenants at Clare, who are typically much younger, would not be able to access the service anymore. And ultimately, the goal is to eliminate customized living, 24/7 customized living, and kind of get everyone into something that would be more like assisted living, nursing home care, or the other complication is that the alternative that they opened up a couple of years ago, ICS, Integrated Community Supports, that was the alternative that they were pushing people towards if we were serving people under 55. But that does not provide nursing. It provides the other elements, so a lot of care coordination, some housekeeping support, but no, not actual nursing. And then that program just got put on pause in November of 2023. So they aren't processing applications to get into that program. So we're in a quandary because we're like, if we could move to that, if that's our only option, we are going to have to face that. We wouldn't be able to continue the nursing, but we can't get our applications processed. It's a real bummer. So another request out there is like, if you have people in the higher ups at DHS that you can push on, that's where we're stuck right now. And Clare is a tiny piece. So when they reported the budgetary impact of serving people under 55, it's a huge impact. I don't remember, I think it's like 35 million. but Clare is one tiny provider in that pool. And so when we talk to them, they're like, oh, we don't have a problem with Clare. It's a system problem, but we have a problem with Clare. It's important to us to keep doing this. Yeah, that's the issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, kind of.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. For those online, Claire said, yes, it did. It made sense. And she thanked me. Any other questions? Yes,
So
Angie.
if someone was interested in some of the community stuff, like
Oh,
something
yeah.
forward karaoke, what would be their next step in
Thank
getting
you.
involved or signing up or
Yes.
finding out?
The question was if someone was interested in getting involved in community things, what would they do? So there is also on the website, but you can email, I believe it's volunteer@Clare Housing. No, Jenny says no, just email Jenny. Jenny, Jenny .Harding, HARDING @clarehousing.org, or any of your favorite staff member. Email us. Oops. Yes, even me, if I'm your favorite. And then we'll connect you. And then John will reach out and talk about what you're looking for. If it is monthly, if it's like, I want to do one thing once, that's fine. Some opportunities, groups have come in from like workplaces to do gardening, or especially at our care homes, they get wild in the summers. So gardening projects, one-time things. We also have, Brian is with 2 Tims and a Tom. Is that right? 3 Tims and a Tom.
The funny thing is there is no Tim or Tom currently involved.
Whoa, that's mine for online. 2 Tims and a Tom. There are no Tims and no Tom? Just a Brian. Oh,
Not just a Brian.
Oh, that's so, that's fun. Okay. Mill City Church. Sorry, my button went off. But since I've been here, and way before, I think, 2 Tims and a Tom, otherwise known as Brian, Mill City Church, have brought in a meal every month, a breakfast every month.
Yep, last Saturday of the month.
Last Saturday of the month, they come here, and it's very popular, and it's super consistent. So you don't have to be that consistent, but it's a great example of like if you have a small group, if you're an individual and want to do it yourself, it could be informal. We also have things like, I mentioned bingos. People really do love bingo. And we do have a lot of passionate pet owners. So resources for pets if you were, again, coming in. We've done some haircuts. We've done, you name it. What your skill is, there's probably a way to do it.
Did you have your own bingo set?
You do, I think. I don't think we own a bingo set. But you know what? We could invest in a bingo set. If that was the one thing holding you back, we would get you a bingo set. We'll get your donation. Angie's on record for donating a bingo set. She is. Her sister's on the record. Yes, thanks. Good question. Oh, other things too. I'm sorry. If you're more of like a person who likes maybe data or stuff like that, you could also volunteer in a different way. So we've had people do like specialized projects, and we have people serving on committees. Like Angie is on our development committee that meets quarterly, but also does things like does thank you calls, cards. Joanne's kind of on the volunteer, but also a board member / she's like a perennial volunteer. She's been with us for 8 years. Yeah, she's a pretend co-staff, but does all the things. And then we don't have to pay her. It's the best. She is a fundraiser. Like if you have a skill set, there's probably a way to get involved. Yes, Terry.
Did you talk about the mural?
Oh, yes, I will talk about the mural. Terry asked if I'd talk about the mural. It's going to be cool. That is, so we were approached. This is another way you could volunteer. We were approached by a person who had received an arts grant and it needed to be used, I think, in this neighborhood. And we talked with him, and he came and talked with residents, and they were willing to get involved. And so this project is coming to fruition soon. The final graphic is almost done. And then this will be produced by this artist who has met with lots of residents and compiled a really cool, it's really colorful, it's really fun picture of residents. It's not identified, it's just we can tell who they are because we know people. And then it's going to be put on a big sticker type thing that's going to go on the south side of this building. So, and it's going to be cool. Yeah. So look for that in hopefully a couple of months. I hope it's up. I think the final drawings are being finalized. It's like a big sticker, they say, and then you peel it off. Yeah.
That side of the building?
That side. So you can't see it. We looked it all around, and because we're hoping to start renovation, which involves a temporary elevator on this side, some of the spaces we may have used are kind of off limits because of the elevator thing. But if you're coming over Central, the bridge, it's like, boom, it's right there. So you have to be going north on Central. And if you know anyone in the building, which you probably do, if you've served breakfast, you'll recognize them. It's pretty cool. Yes, Joanne.
Can you just talk more about Hopwa? I know you said
Oh, yeah.
what percentage it is, but what kind of real
Oh,
dollars
yeah.
are we talking about?
Mhm.
And then how do you think we can place it?
Yeah. Okay, great question. Joanne asked about HOPWA. So HOPWA, again, Housing Opportunities for People Living with HIV or AIDS, is a federal program. It comes through HUD, Housing and Urban Development, and roughly in a given year, it's about $2 million of Clare's budget. So $2 million. It's a big piece of the budget. One of the amazing things about HOPWA is that the flexibility is much greater than any other funding stream we have for supporting housing, because it can be used for capital, like it was a portion of what built this building. That's obviously a one-time thing that's done, but it also can support operations. So it can help pay for utilities, it can help pay for maintenance items, and it can help support services. So it can help it can help pay for our case manager that's working with clients. So having the ability to say, like, at this building, maybe we have a great, source to pay for, we're able to fundraise for a staff, but we can't pay for utilities. So HOPWA would be great. And then that can be different somewhere else. So it was established because of the clear link between housing and reaching undetectability. So within HIV, people who are unhoused are at 16 times more likely to be HIV positive than if you're housed. So the link was really clear. Like, if we don't put resources into housing for people with HIV, how are we ever going to stop transmissions? And at the time it started, it had bipartisan support and has for years. It's always been tiny compared to the full HUD budget. It's $600 million total for the nation. And the way the money works is based on a formula of how many people are living with HIV in your state, in your region. It used to be based on the number of people ever. Now it's living with. So for example, New York, San Francisco used to have huge allocations. Those are now more balanced. And places in the South are especially seeing increases in HIV. So there's funding that's going there. If your government accepts it, not all states will accept the HOPWA dollars or administer them. So in 2016, President Trump zeroed out HOPWA, but there was enough support. So that was just zeroing it out within the HUD budget. There was enough support to keep it. And we have been able to grow it a little bit, like 20 million, I think. And then this year, the proposal is more dramatic in eliminating it in the HUD budget and moving it to this other program, which is emergency shelters grants, not permanent. So that, along with some Section 8 stuff and another program I'm forgetting. I think TVRA maybe. Yeah, we know that for people eligible, you have to be low income, HIV positive, but those are the requirements. It's not one of the programs that you have to fit, 16 different qualifications. And so we've been able to use HOPWA to serve a wider range of people than we could if we were just pulling from, let's say, the homeless prioritization list.
So our local or our federal government officials, Tina Smith, Amy Klobuchar, Ilhan, are they in favor of HOPWA dollars? And is there a way that we can, that's what we should be doing, is sending messages to them to say,
Yes.
do something?
Yes, so Joanne asked who's kind of in favor. So right now on that, one of those QR codes is a message that would go to your representative on the federal level. We have, Tina Smith's been a huge advocate across the board for years. She comes to our housing, and her staff comes to our housing coalition meetings. We have recently asked every member that we can get in touch with to sign on in support of HOPWA dollars. I believe, so we've asked Angie Craig. I don't know if she's signed on yet. We've asked Omar. I don't know if she has signed on yet. And we have asked Emmer's office, who did sign on in support in the past. They had said this year he may not because he's in a new position and close to the president and may not sign on. So yes, that's exactly what we're doing, is trying to get people to sign on in support of keeping HOPWA funded at the same level in its own HUD department where it is. And we're trying to do that by the 20th, which is coming up. So that's where the work Madeline's doing has been huge to get us like that meeting with Emmer's office and to get Angie Craig's person to come out here and see what we do. That's the work we're doing. Yeah. But in the past, we have had unilateral support on the Democrat side for keeping HOPWA in existence. Yeah. Yes, Julie.
So in the interest of positive social activities for residents.
Yeah.
And nice space, maybe revenue, have you considered a social enterprise program?
Julie just asked if I've considered a social enterprise program. I have. I will say, for people that don't know that term, and what I take that you're meaning by that is looking at some kind of a employment or income generating model that would also allow residents to get employed and earn income as part of a Clare service or program, right? Is that a good summary? Yeah, so Jenny's probably the only one that's seen this on, she's like, what are you talking about? I have this, yes, I have. So it's on the list of like things I wish we could do if we had the resources to start something. Because there's a lot of great examples of social enterprise. And I personally come from a background in my last job of creating several, including, you don't need to know all the details right now, but including, I will tell you, working at a spice factory. It was awesome. And Frontier Co-op is the name of it. It's so good. You guys, yep. And also we did mattress recycling. And this was at a shelter setting, so people were with us on a much shorter term, 30 to 90 days. And we were able to get so many people working so they could get a paycheck right away. And we also did a janitorial business and a street cleanup thing. I'm in. So I just need a little time and space to do it. But I do think that there's so much importance around work, and that work is important to people for a lot of reasons, not just income being huge, but also people who work have connection, have social connection with a whole nother group of people. People notice if you don't come. They're like, where are you? They care. They know what's going on in your life. And you're providing a service. You're giving back. You're seeing that you matter in a really tangible way because your work matters because you showed up and did something that day. So I think from a mental health perspective, there's so many positives. So maybe the board should take that on.
Okay, next year.
Yes.
I'm just wondering what percentage of Clare residents
are healthy enough and interested enough to be able to.
Yep. So question was, how many residents are healthy and able enough to work outside? I don't know. I think right now we have about 10% of residents working, and probably others are doing service for some income, but who are working is about 10%. And can I ask Terry what you think of that? What do you think the answer would be?
I'm not quite sure. I would say, yeah, it's probably about 10% or so. Whether that's full-time or, engagement in some kind of vocational support system or setting. Yeah, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, so 10% probably working. I think that there are ways to do part-time work that could be really meaningful for those same reasons I just talked about, that wouldn't be, that more clients would be able to do part-time work than full-time work, especially right off the bat. But I also think that when we look at expanding into greater Minnesota and have started with the STRMU, or the short-term rent assistance program, and with the hotel to housing program, we're coming into contact with more people of different, varying abilities and interest in work. So, but we have so many success stories of, it's not 100%, but of people leaving Clare because they were able to get stable, get healthy, get a job, get full-time work, and we're like, out.
Yeah, and that's my story. I just put my notice in today.
Terry!
I got an apartment, but I've been here 9 years, and for a long time I was sick with co-occurring stuff, and now I'm back to work full-time as a professional social worker.
Yay!
Sort of kind of giving back to the system that supported me.
Oh my gosh, Terry, congratulations. I didn't know you did that. I knew you were looking, but I didn't know you put in. So you put in a notice. So I'm like, Terry's going to buy a house too someday.
I'm not buying a house yet, but I did rent something.
Awesome. So he's going to host our next party, a Clare Housing party. No, that's really awesome. So again, it's not everybody, but there's definitely people where it would make such a difference. So I envision us starting small with people who are eager and ready. And then once people can see that, like, the person they've lived next to that was in a rough place at the beginning was able to work, was able to get that income. I think once we have some wins, you're able to say, you could do it too. And then you think, I could do it. He's doing it. They're doing it. I could do it. That's my hope. Yes, Angie, I'm making sure.
Someone asked for connections to radio stations. She got them, or she's still looking for connections to radio stations?
Madeline's still looking for connections to radio stations. Because
What does that mean?
to be able to do public service announcements type of things around HIV. Because if you've noticed, there's nothing out there public education wise about HIV, especially around new outbreaks that are happening, new populations that are impacted. There's nothing. So we're just also really trying to make sure people know that HIV is still a thing, and it is still we still have new transmission rates that are higher than they were 4 years ago, higher than they were 7 years ago, 10 years ago. We are not going down, we're going up. So she'd love the opportunity. Claire.
What's her email?
Okay,
Or what should I do about that?
you can email your favorite staff person. You can though, Madeline, and her name it's Madeline Hammerland, and so I'm gonna have Jenny give it to you because there's a lot of E's in it. I was like Madele. Okay. I think that is, I don't see anyone else burning with questions. Nikki, anybody online? Nope. Okay. And it's 5:31 or 2. And so that's your time. But thank you all. This was so fun. Thank you for coming. Yay.